trying to figure out a speaker for a series, you know, why this topic? You know, when I first came to Boston a long time ago, 38 years, 40 maybe, and I started to work at Skinner and developed the jewelry department, I realized that Boston's a town that loves blue and white. Canton china, blueberry muffins, sapphire and diamonds. And coming from New York and being, my mother used to call me a beatnik, that I kind of like the stuff that didn't sparkle, but I like the sparkly stuff too, don't get me wrong. I will never say no to a beautiful diamond, Larry. So when this group of jewelry came in from this collector, Susan Freeman and Cliff Freeman, who have a wide range of tastes from very, very valuable Cartier jewelry to just quirky jewelry, silver jewelry, whatever. Whatever she liked was bought. And as a result, knowing her for many years and selling over many years, this collection came in, but she bought the best of the best. So of this group, you're seeing great examples of modernist 50s jewelry. And knowing Toni for many years, I said, well, this is like a natural fit. So I'm just going to introduce Toni. She's a New York-based art historian specializing in 20th century jewelry and metalwork. She wrote probably the definitive work on the subject, Messengers of Modernism, American Studio Jewelry from 1940 to 1960, along with numerous book chapters, exhibitions, essays. I mean, she is the last word in this period. So I decided, Toni, and a lot of words, right? And so, having known Toni for many years, and I don't know if she remembers this, it's just a little aside, and then I'm finished. We drove home from jewelry camp in Maine one summer. Yes, the lobster rolls were fantastic, but she was finishing the Messengers of Modernism, which didn't have a name. Do you remember riding in the car and we were brainstorming, and it was like badges, you know, we were looking for words and we couldn't come up with something. But of course, Toni came up with this, Messengers of Modernism. Brilliant. I don't know if you had a chance to see the book. It's here. We unfortunately don't have copies of it. So Toni is very special in this field, a special lecturer, someone who's absolutely passionate about this material. And I said, you know, it's time for Boston to get passionate about something they don't like or really haven't seen. So I introduced Toni Greenbaum tonight. Thank you.
Gloria, thank you for those lovely words and that lovely trip down memory highway. Jewelry camp. Oh God, those were the days. Those were the days. This is a total aside, has nothing to do with my topic. But the thing I remember most about jewelry camp is going to the ladies' room and people literally handing you things under the stall to look at and give your opinion on. Nothing like jewelry camp. Now all the memories are going to start coming back. Anyway, Gloria, thank you for those wonderful words. I'm so happy to be here. One of the biggest reasons I'm so happy to be here is to see Gloria, who I haven't seen in years. Hi, Larry. I see you out there. You look as fantastic as always. And I remember people used to say they envied Gloria. What was it? The diamond ring and your husband? Yep. So, and thank you so much for being here. And we're going to have a lot of fun. This is going to be a lighthearted romp through couples who make jewelry. Some of them collaborate, some of them don't collaborate, but all of them somehow got together through this discipline that we all love so much, jewelry. And design couples are really nothing new. I'm sure most of you have heard of Charles Rennie McIntosh and his wife Margaret MacDonald. their brother and sister-in-law, the McNairs, Herbert and Frances McNair. Frances was Margaret's sister, Charles and Ray Eames, Nana and Jorgen Ditzel, Alvar and Aino Alto, etc. So couples who made jewelry are really nothing new. Women, the early part of the century, didn't get so much credit as they do now. But for some reason, thank you, for some reason, jewelry attracts people, not just to the discipline, but to each other. And I was asked to write an article for a magazine. Actually, I'm gonna plug the article in the magazine called Modern, that some of you may be familiar with, on jewelry couples that I named 2 for the show, Jewelry's Power Couples. So it got me into looking at and researching several couples through history, and when I say history, I mean my history, which starts after World War II. And coming up to the present. So I think some of the couples that we're going to look at are going to be people that you may not have heard of, but that hopefully turn you on just like they've turned each other on. So, first couple are Sam and Carol Kramer. And 3 of the pieces that are on display now are by Sam Kramer. A bracelet and 2 fantastic rings. Now, this is Carol Cramer. Carol was Sam's wife, and that's Sam's hand, holding an earring on her ear. Sam's first shop opened in 1939 in Greenwich Village, and he promoted something called fantastic jewelry for people who are slightly mad. And he fashioned himself as somewhat of a surrealist persona, living in Greenwich Village during and just after World War II. He was actually one of the first people to open a shop in Greenwich Village. And this was his second shop, which was on 8th Street. The first shop was on 3rd Street. That's where he met Carol. She wandered into the shop one day. She was a fashion model from Brooklyn. They married the following year, and he moved his shop to 8th Street. So there you see the shop. You see the sort of biomorphic forms in the window. And this is the shop at, I guess, at dusk. Sam Kramer, hand-wrought jewelry. And then the little sign above the stairs, it was a second-floor shop, which was a mushroom in a circle, which was Sam Kramer's hallmark. And he called himself Mushroom Sam. He and Carol lived in the back of the shop on a collapsible cot. She cooked on a hot plate. And he would very often, according to family lore, which I'm going to have to confirm, but according to family lore, he would greet his first customers in the morning wearing his pajamas. And I've recently heard with a drink in his hand, not orange juice, unless it had vodka in it. And he was quite a character. So these are 2 more views. The view on your left is from 1946, right around the time he opened. And the view on the right is from 1955. And that is Sam carrying an attaché case and a lobster. Yeah, he was going through his Dada phase. And that is Sam in front of his shop with one of his space girls. Now, what he did was, and this is also circa 1955, so he put an ad in several New York City newspapers for models to be space girls. And he would put a space helmet on them and a cape, and that is, she's wearing a Sam Kramer necklace. These space girls would noodle around Greenwich Village on this motorized bike handing out leaflets of the store. That's Sam in his studio. It was a studio shop. And Carol became very interested in making jewelry. And he walked into the shop once and he actually found her trying to make a ring. So he taught her to make jewelry. And it has become known to us over the years that Carol was actually responsible for several of the designs, and also they did collaborate on certain pieces. So that's Sam at his bench, working on a piece of jewelry. Now this is an iconic piece called The Lovers. If it looks familiar to some of you, well, it may look familiar for two reasons. But one of the reasons may be that it is in the permanent collection of MFA Boston. It's in the Daphne Farrago collection. The Lovers is as it looks. It's a very surreal, articulated interpretation of the act of making love. What we have learned is that this, in fact, was a collaboration between Sam and his wife, Carol. So this piece is from, let me just check the date, 1949. And this is in MFA Boston. Sam loved to use stones. He loved to use taxidermy eyes. Taxidermy eyes have been used in jewelry for a long time, but he really collected the taxidermy eyes, collected the stones, and used them quite a bit in many different ways. And also, the biomorphic forms are very, very apparent in this bracelet. This piece is from 1950. It's also in MFA Boston. This piece is called the Cyclops, due to the one eye, which is also a taxidermy eye. It's in a private collection. Some of Sam's and Carol's designs were quite bizarre, as was this one. Sam was from Pittsburgh, and he studied journalism, but he studied at the University of USC, Southern California, and he took a jewelry course, not a pottery course, but a jewelry course with Glenn Lukens, who was a very avant-garde potter in the 1930s, known mostly for his dripped and pooled glazes. So some of you may have heard of Glenn Lukens. We really think that this dripping and pooling, like the little sort of curl on the top of the Cyclops, and on this piece that's in the Museum of Arts and Design in New York, this is a rooster, the beak and the coxcomb, and the feet are made with this dripping and pooling that Sam may have learned from Glenn Lukens, who may have transferred the way he looked at glazes on pottery to jewelry making. I've done a lot of research into that course, but there are no records at USC. The best I could find was the listing in one of the catalogs that he did in fact teach a jewelry course. So this is rock pendant, and this is in the, as I said, in the collection of Mad in New York. And it also shows how Sam Kramer loved using the stones. And there's a story, whether it's apocryphal or true, I don't know, but when Carol had her gallbladder removed, he wanted to make a bracelet out of her gallstones. Listen, I'm just the reporter. Don't kill the messenger. But she didn't remember when she was coming out of her anesthesia to get them from the doctor. He was very irate. The trumpeter, this is in the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts. This piece is in Messengers of Modernism, which is their collection. As is this bracelet, which is a collaboration with Sam and one of his studio mates, Peggy Ackerley. And I think you can see some relationship to Miro, definitely, in this piece. So why are jewelers attracted to each other and to jewelry? Jewelry is all about touch. It's all about wearing it close to the body. I like to call jewelry the intimate art. There is something about jewelry as an art form that's different than any other art form, because it is worn on the body. You touch it. It's alluring. It's sexy. And I think that it is just the very function of jewelry makes it something that is lends itself to thinking about it in a more intimate way than we think of other things. Now, Toza and Ruth Radakovich lived on the West Coast in Encinitas, California, which is very near San Diego. San Diego in the mid-20th century had a very active craft community, not just jewelry, but the enamels, in particular enamels, and many, many other mediums. Svetozar and Ruth Radakovich, and I'm going to go back to that picture, but I want to skip to this one for a moment. Svetozar, Toza was his nickname, and Ruth Radakovich met in 1946 in Yugoslavia. Svetozar Radakovich was Serbian. At that time it was Yugoslavian. And he was an artist, a painter. He was working in the art department at the United Nations Rehabilitation and Relief Administration in Belgrade. And Ruth was an American from the Midwest who had gone there to do volunteer work. They met and they fell in love. And then Ruth came back to the United States to study metalsmithing at Rochester Institute of Technology, which had a wonderful metalsmithing program run by Hans Christensen, who was a Danish metalsmith. So these two people have a personal story which reads like a John le Carré novel. It is like full of Cold War intrigue to the nth degree. Ruth goes back to the United States to study metalsmithing at RIT. Toza is arrested because by this time the communists have taken over Yugoslavia. She, and they've been corresponding, she realizes she's madly in love with him. She goes back to Europe and she takes up residence in Bari, Italy, which is on the coast. Think of the Adriatic. I'm not good in geography, but I think it's the Adriatic. She's sending him care packages in jail. And in these care packages, she's sending notes to him hidden in pill bottles, paintings with messages that are painted over. So like pentimenti, you take the surface of the painting off and there's a message. But the craziest thing she sent him was a small boat for him to escape in, piece by piece, piece by piece. So she'd send the care package. There'd be little pieces that he's supposed to put this boat together. And he succeeded in putting the boat together, but he was caught and he was arrested, rearrested. But he was determined to leave. Meanwhile, she's there in Bari, Italy. He's determined to leave. He stole a small Navy vessel and did indeed escape and met her in Bari, Italy. They went to Paris, 1953. They were married in 1954. And I get all this from their daughter, Jeannie. So I think she's probably, a good historian, we hope. So they're married in Paris in 1954, but they cannot stay. The French will not grant Toza a visa. The only place that would grant Toza a visa was Denmark. What are they teaching in Denmark? Metalsmithing. So they go to Copenhagen. Toza said, look, we're married. Oh, and by the way, Ruth's wedding dress, Toza had made because his mother taught him to sew as a child in Belgrade. And Toza said, look, we want to go back to the United States, and he wants to be an American citizen. Ruth is an American. She wants to come home. He said, we have to make a living. Why don't we be metalsmiths? Because then we'll only need one set of equipment. Great idea. So they learn metalsmith, come back to the United States, and move to Encinitas, California. Well, actually, first they went to RIT together. And this is a picture of them at RIT around 1955. So that's Ruth and Toza sharing their bench at Rochester Institute of Technology. So the bracelet is by Toza. The bracelet is from the 1960s, yellow and rose gold and turquoise beads. They were really sensational jewelers. The brooch is by Ruth. It's also gold and garnet. Obviously influenced by Scandinavian modern, Henning Koppel, Henry Moore. This is a pendant, and it's funny with this pendant, I have seen this attributed to each of them. I've seen it attributed to Toza, I've seen it attributed to Ruth. I think it's Toza's, and it's because I know the person who has it, and the person who has it said it was Toza's. It's 1950s. And this is a silver piece, a little earlier than the others I showed you. And another piece by Toza. You can really see the Henry Moore influence here, also from the 1950s. This is a brooch by Ruth, very similar in concept, with a turquoise, number 8 mine turquoise. And a brooch with an opal and pearl by Ruth. This is in the LA County Museum of Art, this particular piece. And these are from the 50s, but as we come to the 60s, when they were both still working, Ruth certainly got a little crazy with her ring designs. The one with the piece shooting up that looks like a sea urchin, that is in the permanent collection of MAD, the Museum of Arts and Design. So that one's from 1969. The other piece with the that flies off the hand with those kind of hanging bells is from 1968. And they did things other than jewelry. Because they were living on the Pacific Ocean near San Diego, they decided they wanted to do architectural detailing, doors. So who do you think they learned how to make doors from? What did these look like? Class? Who said surfboard? You get an A. Okay. They learned how to carve fiberglass from a surfboard designer. So their doors, Ruth's is on the left and Toza's is on the right, carved from fiberglass, look very, very much like surfboards. And these are from 1967, 1969, respectively. And they also designed this wonderful playground set. This was a collaboration, the playground set. And this is from 1960. Ruth and Toza later in life in front of their Encinitas home. Tragically, Ruth died in 1975, I think. She died early. She died in 1975 of ovarian cancer, and on her, it was her 21st wedding anniversary. So it was really, really tragic. Now, Heis, Bakker, and Emmy von Leersum, who some of you may have heard of, lived in the Netherlands. Heis is still living in the Netherlands. He's a very well-known, not only jeweler, but also industrial designer, one of the founders of Droog Design, D-R-O-O-G, which some of you may have heard of. So he met his wife, Emmy von Leersum, at art school, which many of the more contemporary jewelers did. When people like Sam Kramer was going to school, there really weren't many jewelry programs. What he took with Glenn Lukens, this potter at USC, was kind of random. There was not that much of an opportunity to learn jewelry making. They pretty much had to teach themselves or take adult ed courses at high schools or something that was given under some other auspices, like at the Museum of Modern Art for returning World War II veterans, something like that. However, as time went on, jewelry became far more of an established discipline within the university systems. So many of these more current artists did meet each other in art school. So Heis, Bakker, and Emmy von Leersum met at what is now called the Gerrit Rietveld Academy in Amsterdam. It was not a jewelry school, it was an art school, although they did give some jewelry courses. Emmy had been a nursery school teacher, and she was married, and she was 28 years old. She wanted to learn art and be a jeweler. She didn't any longer want to teach nursery school. Heis was 16. So this is where they met, Gerrit Rietveld Academy. And the metalsmithing program was not really to either of their satisfaction, particularly not Heis's satisfaction. So he went to Kunstfack in Stockholm, which is a very well-known school, which had a silversmithing program then and still does, a very excellent one. And a couple of years later, Emmy went there as well. And that's when they got together. They opened a studio, this is roughly 1969, this picture of them in Amersfoort in the Netherlands. And they both really were part of the revolution of the 1960s. I mean, let's think back to the 1960s, the political, social, cultural revolution. That was the 1960s. Well, that also demanded jewelry that reflected this avant-garde revolutionary experience that everybody was having. So this bib that Heis made, which was 1976, this was a little bit later, 1976, is a photograph of his own chest, which he transferred onto fabric and then is wearing over his shirt as a pectoral. Emmy, his wife, on the right, that is her profile. I mean, obviously nobody else could wear that because he fitted it on her actual face, his face jewelry. And that piece is from 1974. It's called Your Own Profile, made for Emmy. Iconic piece by Heis Bakker called The Embrace. That is not Emmy, that's a model wearing that necklace, but that is a photograph that Heis had taken of himself in aerial view, then laminated in plastic and worn as a necklace. Now, we see a lot of, it's called Embrace. We see a lot of jewelry that's photographed and laminated in plastic now as brooches and necklaces, but Heis Bakker was the one who started it. He is the one who's responsible for it. Now, this piece is from 1982, but just to backtrack, when he and Emmy first started making jewelry, this piece from 1966 is a stainless steel bracelet. What they were both basically trying to do was push the limits of geometry. I mean, how far can we push planes of metal and still have it be able to stay together, not fall apart, function as a bracelet? So this doesn't look very radical, but for 1966, it surely was. And this is an armband. I believe this one is silver, by Emmy. So this one was by Heis, this one was by Emmy from 1966. The year that they got married. They married in 1966. 1967, Heis made this also iconic set of necklace and bracelet from aluminum stovepiping. And this was shown at a gallery in England, and there was a wonderful article in one of the London newspapers with the heading saying, "What the girls will be wearing in 2000." So just wonderful, 1967. And this is Emmy wearing one of her collars. This is an aluminum collar, although she calls it a shoulder piece, also from the same period, 1968. And one of the things that Emmy always was also very interested in was clothing, garments, and how they related to the jewelry on the body. So this is a piece of hers from also 1967. You see that there's a dress of fabric, and then it's held on by this collar of aluminum. Then Heis and Emmy together as a collaboration in 1970 did something called Clothing Suggestions. Now, this is not Heis and Emmy. These are probably dancers from the Netherlands Dance Company who used this series of clothing suggestions as costumes for a ballet they did called Mutations. But what Heis and Emmy were trying to do was to do jewelry under the fabric. So this is nylon tricot, it's a stretchy fabric, and they used hoops of plastic, hoops of wood, hardened polyester, anything they could find to alter the contours of the body. These were really iconic pieces, and Heis and Emmy also brought jewelry to the catwalk. They had runway shows with these garments, which really verged on performance art. I mean, they weren't like fashion runway shows. There was music, there was dancing, there was movement, and it was almost like Oscar Schlemmer's ballet, the Triadic Ballet or Parade, when people wore all these fantastical cubist costumes, and it was relating to the body and to the environment. Around the same time, David Watkins and Wendy Ramshaw were working in England. That's David and Wendy around 1974. They met at Reading University in around 1961, and they were married in 1962. So David is known for sort of technologically advanced body pieces, which define not only jewelry's relationship to the body, but also to the immediate environment surrounding the body and the jewelry. So this is an early piece of his from around 1976. This is a bracelet called Gyro. There have been several of these. This one is an early one of aluminum and plastic, and those little bands in the white plastic are gold. A few of these were just offered at auction in New York. David Watkins was not originally an artist, let alone a jeweler. He was originally a jazz musician. And a jazz musician, a composer, and he met Wendy, as I said, in art school. She wasn't a jeweler either. She was a painter. And what they really were doing, they were both really self-taught in jewelry, and both of their jewelry shows a great deal of technological influence. They shared a studio when they were married. This is a piece from the 1980s, which is neoprene over steel and painted wood. I think this is from 1982, this necklace of David Watkins. And this is an earlier piece of Wendy's from 1973. It's silver and enamel. I think this is in the Victoria and Albert Museum. Now, David is also very well known for designing the medals for the 2012 Summer London Olympics. He also designed models for 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1968. And Wendy designed gates, iron gates that are in Hyde Park, and also gates that are in the Victoria and Albert Museum, including other places. She's very well known for these ring sets. These may be familiar to you. These come up at auction fairly frequently. You have? Oh, fabulous! Oh, good. Then you can see the. Oh, wow! Ring sets. Then you can see them in real life after the talk. Okay. So Wendy she and David, as I said, shared a studio in their home. She was inspired by the machinery that he used. Now he was a musician, but again, he did go to art school. But what he was specializing in when they met at Reading University was sculpture. Wooden sculpture, and he had a lot of equipment. So what she started to do was to lathe turn the plastic and aluminum on his equipment. So these unscrew, which you'll see when you look at it, and the rings are sort of fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. She's also known for a series that she did inspired by Picasso's portraits of women. This whole Picasso's Ladies series. So this is from, this piece is from 1988, painted silver and color core. But this ring set, this is just one ring set, by the way, but it's 3 different views of it. This is just one ring set. This is pretty typical of her more recent work. This piece is from 2002, not that recent, but fairly recent. And this is lathe-turned anodized aluminum and 16 gold rings that fit together on the stand. Now, they collaborated on two projects. One was something called optic art jewelry, which was in the 1960s. Remember op art? And remember the designs of Courrèges and Rudy Gernreich and Paco Rabanne? Well, those clothing designs were influenced by op art, and they did a series of jewelry which related to that clothing and to op art. So they collaborated on that, and then they collaborated on a paper jewelry project. And the paper jewelry project, this is a reissue in 2001 of the original project from the 1960s. But that paper jewelry project was pop out, and well, it says easy to wear and ready to make pop out artware. So you would buy it flat like paper dolls, and then you would assemble this paper jewelry. And this was reissued, as I said, in 2001. And that's David and Wendy at Haystack Mountain School of Crafts in 2007. Now, Otto Künzli and Therese Hilbert, another very, very, very important jewelry couple. This is Otto and Therese in 1980. They are Swiss. They're both from Zurich, Switzerland. They met in art school in Zurich in the late 1960s. And then they both went to the famous okay, let me see if I can get the name right. Well, I'm just going to say in English, the Munich Fine Art Academy, where they both studied together under Hermann Junger, who began the jewelry program, the Academie der Bildenden Kunst. So Otto Künzli, I think, can probably be credited really with being the father of very conceptual contemporary art. And he and Therese married in 1972, and this brooch is called Brooch für zwei Personen, or brooch for two people. And it's the ultimate couple's brooch. So you don't see the brooch. I think the couple is the jewelry in this case. Then he also did a rings für zwei Personen, a stainless steel ring. That is also Otto and his wife Therese, which would hold the two people together. So this is around 1980. That's Otto with Who Knows. This is 2001. Otto has a great sense of humor, obviously, but within the humor, there is also a great deal of comment about jewelry, preciousness, wearability. I mean, I could do a lecture, a complete lecture on Otto Künzli. And that is a necklace by Therese, stainless steel necklace, 1980s, and a brooch by Therese called a star or stern, silver and stainless steel from 1985. Now, Otto and Therese do not collaborate. They talk about jewelry, they discuss each other's work, but they have separate studios. They don't share a studio. And Otto has said that many pieces of Therese's have gone unfinished because he has poked his nose in at the wrong time. She likes her privacy. Therese likes her privacy. This is a neck chain by Otto, which is, what does it look like it's made up of? Class? Who said wedding rings? A cigar to the person, or a glass of Prosecco to the person who said wedding rings. What Otto did, their wedding rings, and it's like the ultimate romantic jewelry. What Otto did was, he put an ad in Munich newspapers. This is around 1981. And to collect wedding rings, he collected 48 wedding rings with stories, ranging for a century, from 1881 to 1981. And he cut the wedding rings and he made this chain. And he also published a book with the stories behind each of these wedding rings, some of which are engraved, some of which are engraved on the outside or the inside. He definitely has a very romantic streak. This is a famous brooch of Otto's. Otto works in all sorts of mediums, always changing up the game. Huge carved foam core, red lacquered heart. Looks like an emoticon, but it is a very powerful piece when you see it in person. So this piece is from 1985, and one of Otto's most iconic pieces called O Say, which is a silhouette of layered icons, albeit abstracted, a Christian cross, a Star of David, Mickey Mouse, who appears in many of Otto's, much of Otto's jewelry. But then when you put it all together, it looks like a Ku Klux Klan hood. Not romantic, but just gives you a little bit more insight into Otto. Now, Otto and Therese just, and that is Otto and Therese at that show in 2016. It was a real retrospective of this couple's life's work. And the interesting thing about Otto and Therese is that this is only in this lengthy career, spanning decades. This is the only time, the second time the two of them showed together. First was in the Schmuck Museum, or the Jewelry Museum in Pforzheim in 1979. And this is only the second time in a museum that they've ever shown together. And this is this large retrospective. That's a wall of photographs of them from their life's work. Very, very interesting, dynamic, and important couple. Now, Javed Bielander and Helen Britton met at the Munich Academy of Fine Arts. Otto Künzli was their teacher. He took over from Hermann Junger and ran the program up until about 2 years ago when he retired from teaching. So Javed is also Swiss, like Otto. Helen is from Australia. And that's Javed and Helen. Also great sense of humor. They titled this Jewelers in a Box. This is a recent picture. This was just taken in the fall. And they really are two of the most important contemporary jewelers working today. That's Javed on the left and Helen on the right. They have a huge studio in Munich, where I've been, that they share with Yutaka Minagishi, who is a Japanese jeweler. Three of them have shared a studio since they met as students at the Academy of Fine Arts in Munich. Javed is a real trompe-l'oeil jeweler. This is a bracelet made out of silver, patinated silver, which really replicates shrimp pretty exactly. Yeah, he is. Each of them truly is absolutely amazing. Now, the reason why I bring up Yutaka, their studio mate, is because when they got married, they've been together for many years, but they actually got married in 2012. Yutaka was their one. He was their one attendant, and Helen and Javed got married. Rosemarie Jaeger, who has a gallery in Hochheim, Germany, Gallery Rosemarie Jaeger, is doing a series, it's still going on, called Couples in Jewelry, which is just coincidental to my agenda, my article, and my talk here. And Helen and Javed had they were in this couples in jewelry exhibition, which was titled "The Bride, the Groom, and the Best Man." So it was the three of them instead of a couple in jewelry. It was the three of them in jewelry. So Javed is a real trompe-l'oeil artist. This is a bracelet of his, which is patinated silver. Looks exactly like a tire. His sausage necklace, these are all relatively recent pieces. His sausage necklace, which, can anybody guess what this is made out of? Because he uses appropriated objects. Who said a tonnet chair? You're right. It is made out of a tonnet chair. And he does Toni, the bent wood, the Toni bent wood chair. I think it's the number 18 chair. Yeah. It's called Frankfurter. It's a Toni number 14 chair. So this is made from a toning chair. This is some of his most recent work. It looks like corrugated cardboard. This is 18 karat red gold. The staples are white gold. When I saw these pieces at Schmuck, which is the annual crazy jewelry extravaganza in Munich every March, and he had 4 bracelets on a shelf, and he had 8 bracelets. He had 4 that were corrugated cardboard and 4 that were patinated silver. You could not tell the difference. I'm telling you, until you actually picked them up and felt the metal, you couldn't tell the difference. Since then, he's done some in gold, like this necklace, which also doubles as a crown. But it really does look like corrugated cardboard with the white gold staples. Now, Helen, on the other hand, and by the way, in the basement of their studio is a photographer, and his wife is a stylist. So they have in-house photography and styling. So Dirk, who is the photographer, he took the picture of Helen and David, jewelers in a box, and this incredible picture of Helen, and the one of her with the sardine. So this is Helen amidst an array of her brooches. She uses a lot of found objects, particularly bits of costume jewelry. She's really turned on by any and every material in an assemblage format. She really needs to make order out of chaos. The things, the sights and the sounds, the detritus cities are things that really turn her on, including the perpetual natural formations in cities fascinate her. So this combination of these found objects that she sees in cities, her love of costume jewelry, sometimes she'll just go, she was in the Bavarian forest and there's this family that's been making these little tiny glass birds as Christmas tree ornaments that just fascinated her. She appropriated those and made jewelry out of them. So that's pretty much what her jewelry is about. This is a ring of hers with very small Australian diamonds. Also, although this is not any appropriated objects, it certainly does have the feeling of objects that are assembled. This is one of her most recent pieces. It's a gold charm called Lucky Dick. Carl Fritsch and Lisa Walker. Okay, Carl and Lisa, guess how they met? Munich Academy of Fine Arts. Carl is German, not Swiss. Lisa is New Zealander, not Australian. Carl had graduated. Now, the Munich Academy of Fine Arts, I should say, does not have an undergraduate jewelry program. They only have a graduate jewelry program. It is, I think, arguably, I don't know if Joe will agree, the finest in the world. I think it's arguably the finest jewelry program in the world. And it's only a master's program. And there are no courses. What it is you, if you are accepted, you go and you work. And it's all critiques. Critiques of the faculty and critiques of the other students, of your peers. And you stay there for as long as you want. The average time people stay is 6 years. So this is really intense. And many, not all, but many of our greatest jewelers have graduated from this program over the years, since it was founded by Hermann Junger in the early 1960s. Now, Carl had graduated, and he went to New Zealand to give a lecture about the school. Lisa fell in love with the idea of the school, and perhaps Carl, and then went and studied at the school. So that's Carl and Lisa. Lisa said she thinks that this was taken by one of their kids well, they're obviously on a bus, and they went back to New Zealand. So they now live in Wellington with their 2 children. Carl makes only rings. He really he is, I would say, he regards the ring subversively. He will combine extant rings, rings that are both fine and costume. He will sometimes use them in total, sometimes he will cast them, and he'll combine them with other things that he may hand make. But it's really a sardonic look at the ring, which is something that everybody owns. I don't think there's anybody in the world who doesn't own or at some time own and wear a ring. Sometimes he just starts from scratch, makes castings of various bits and connects them, patinates them, mounts them with stones. And again, these are all very recent pieces from the 2000s. So I'm not going to just repeat dates. So this is silver with rubies and sapphires. Now this ring, I'm not sure what the white metal is. It could be silver, it could be white gold, it could be platinum. He uses all of them. It could be, it's clearly made from a traditional ring. It could be a casting from that traditional ring. And it's mounted with diamonds. Not gem quality, certainly, but these diamonds are mounted upside down on their sides. If you examine these Karl Fritsch rings, it is mind-boggling, the craftsmanship that goes into just keeping these things together. But everything he does is the ring. This is gold, rose gold. Again, probably cast from a traditional ring, plastic and a screw. I have to admit, I am addicted to Karl Fritsch's rings. Addicted. Once you own one, you cannot get enough. There's nothing like, really nothing like them. Mine are a little more conservative. This is a very recent one, a silver ring with a gem sapphire. Now Lisa, they live in their house with their 2 teenage children in Wellington. On the same property, they have their studio, but independent studios within the house. They don't work together. And also, Lisa told me they don't even talk about jewelry. You know, they talk about the kids, they talk about art, they don't talk about jewelry. And they never collaborate. And very often, she will see things of Karl's for the first time at an exhibition. You know, they don't really look at each other's work. She uses almost exclusively found objects. So this is a piece, obviously googly eyes, from a googly-eyed stuffed animal that she's sewn together. Her pieces also are impeccably crafted. This is the cover of a magazine called Current Obsession, with a necklace of Lisa's on the cover made out of cell phones. And this, although it's not a collaboration between Lisa and Karl, the elements of this necklace by Lisa are made from Karl's offcuts. So those were aluminum offcuts where you can see the ring, the contour of the ring in these offcuts. So she made a necklace out of it, which I thought was kind of neat, that this is, although it's not a collaboration, it certainly brings the two of them together. And this is a brooch by Lisa, which is plastic. I love her work too. Plastic, acrylic, and silver. And I thought that this would be a good place to say the end.